Syndicate.
Presented by Dano Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the latest edition of the Sunbelt Syndicate, a little bit of an abbreviated show since I was out at the Carolina Hurricanes game last night, making Marv real jealous because that's his favorite team too. But it was an unknown about when that game would end and when I'd be back, and it was just too much to try and facilitate unless we went like really, really late. So you know what's funny? I didn't even tell you this, Marv. I got home by like 8:15. Could have been set for but I had no idea. You know, you go to overtime, you go to shootout, traffic's bad, trying to get out of there. Too many unknowns. But with you from the first kick to the last pitch, as we say, W Energy, Fanplex, Graphics, TSN Off-Road, and Dano Seasoning, their new Cajun flavor out now. Be sure to check that out. A fan favorite for sure. It's got to be a fan favorite for the Sunbelt, right?
It seems fitting.
It does. And as always, Artie Cat getting us started off right. Hey, Dominic and Marvin, what's going on, Artie? And Tyler Austin, Troy U, Upset Kings, baby. Yeah, that one.
Didn't see that coming.
No, definitely did not see that coming. A great game, a really entertaining game to watch as well. So we will definitely be jumping into that one. But first off, Marv, we talked about my weekend to an extent. What was yours like?
Man, so oldest son's birthday, turned 9 on Saturday. So went and did all his favorite stuff. Went to the batting cage, got a pitching lesson, went to an arcade, went bowling, then went out to eat dinner, and it was full Saturday, grandparents in town, all that good stuff. So
nice.
That was it.
He get a ride on the new golf cart?
You know what? He doesn't seem to give two bits of a crap about it. My youngest son,
really,
man, any chance he can get on it, because it's got like a high and a low mode, so you can put it in low mode and it goes like 12 miles per hour max. So he gets to drive it and he feels probably like an adult for a little while. But Mason, my oldest, is like, if we go, we go. If not, who cares?
Interesting.
Yeah,
interesting. He was never was it Power Wheels? He was never a Power Wheels kid.
He had one, and when he was a kid, he enjoyed it. But if the whole family's going to go, that's great. But he's never once been like, "Hey, Dad, can we go on a golf cart?" Whereas my youngest son, like, he definitely requests that quite often.
Nice. All right, interesting. I figured all the kids would always want to hop on that thing. Like, let's go to the grocery store in it. Let's do this. Let's do that in it.
I did too. That's why we bought it.
Oh man, that's all. I am jealous of that thing. I've always wanted one. Like sometime a UTV, ATV, golf cart, something like that.
We got it because and we're completely off topic at the moment. But where we live, they're opening up. They're building all this stuff what they call the waterfront district. So there's these two big ponds / small lakes. They're building all these homes and shops and restaurants around it. So they're going to be opening up like 3 or 4 restaurants and a couple bars, like literally where I can ride there in the golf cart. And that was kind of the whole purpose, was get it so during the summer when it's nice, you can ride over and grab something to eat and a drink and ride back. And I don't know, that was the justification, at least that's what my wife sold me on, and here we are.
Nice. Is it going to be one of those social districts where they allow you to like walk around with a beverage and all that? Or
I think so. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. That'll be cool. And if you don't want to get a DUI as a possibility, did you know that there's a state law in the state of North Carolina where you can ride a horse with a beer in your hand and not get in trouble for it?
Interesting.
So now you need to own a golf cart and a horse, just so you know.
Horses freak me out, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I just saw that on social media. It blew up about some guy riding a horse. He was obviously drunk, drinking a beer, holding it in his hand and explaining the fact that you could not get a DUI while on a horse, which apparently is written into the law. So interesting.
Hey, that's why you got to know your laws.
Yeah. Warren says Troy is ready for Louisiana. He's got a bunch of swords there. It's good to be joining y'all from the ground. Last week I was in the air. I had to go up and watch the Celtics and Bruins during the weekend. That's pretty cool, Tyler. I've never actually been to Boston. I'm sure Marv has. Have you been to Boston?
Yeah, my brother lived there for 7 years. We used to go up there every year on his birthday.
Nice.
Yeah, but we never went to a Bruins or Celtics games. Been to a couple Red Sox games at Fenway, but Yeah, never basketball or hockey.
Interesting. Well, there's always time, right?
Yeah, he doesn't live there anymore, but that mean we can't go.
Yeah, that's true. All right, like you said, we've been off topic long enough now. Let's jump into Week 12 review. Every team in the conference went this past week except for App State. They had that bye that was already baked in. I'm sure they would have liked to have found a game had the schedule or the season gone a little differently. Obviously, with the way it went, I don't think anybody was clamoring to try and facilitate anything at that point in time. But here you go. Here's kind of how the schedule laid out here and who matched up with who, and the red X's indicate that they did not win the game. So we will jump past that one and get right into the first one. Probably not a ton to talk about here, Marv, but you've got ULM now 5-5 and 3-3 in conference, going up with the only out-of-conference matchup against Auburn. They lose this one 14-48.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. Listen, man, Auburn's 4-6. That's not Auburn standards, right? But SEC team, ULM maybe overachieved a little bit earlier in the season, but when you go 2 for 12 on third down and only have 218 total yards and give up 507, kind of hard to win football games. So, I mean, I don't really think there's much to talk about here. Probably what was expected as a ULM fan, you might have wanted that game to be closer. But yeah, SEC school playing in front of 88,000 people, tough environment. Yeah, it's kind of what I expected.
Yeah, I was going to say I was actually impressed with what Auburn brought into that stadium, right? I mean, this is the type of game where Auburn fans are down, right? They're not very good, obviously. But you bring in ULM, it's not going to necessarily spark that fan base to get excited about this game. But they still packed that place out pretty good. I think it was a support the troops, veteran type of weekend for them. That usually helps out, but definitely a pretty packed house. So a very good atmosphere in there for this one, and they definitely put on a show, unfortunately, easily covering that 24-point spread that we saw earlier in the week. And, the over-under total of 45.5, they just got that all by themselves. So, yeah, if you put something on this for the Auburn Tigers, you probably walking away pretty happy after the end of this one. Armenta goes, he had no time back behind that line. He went just 8 of 15, no touchdowns, no interceptions. So he kind of took care of the ball. But let's listen to this stat that I've pulled out here. The entire Warhawks offense, receiving core anyway, 9 catches on the day. Cam Coleman is a pretty good wide receiver for Auburn Tigers. He had 8 all by himself.
Wow.
So, yeah, they went for 304 through the air. And it was not going to be matched by that Warhawks offense. We know that they struggle to throw the ball in general. Hardy did have a half-decent game, I'd say, against a team that he was expected not to put up a lot against, with that Auburn defense. 60 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, the best player continues to be their best player, unless you want to go on the, defensive side where Carl Glass came up pretty big for them. But unfortunately, just not enough in that one. He came away with 4 total tackles, a tackle for loss, and a fumble recovery. So defensively, that was their spark.
Lydette Williams had 13 tackles and a tackle for loss, so he was all over the place. But I mean, if you look at the stats, they didn't turn the ball over. Time of possession was about 50-50. Like I said, 2 of 12 on third downs, not sustaining any drives, 218 total yards. Just not a recipe to win.
Yeah, definitely not. Tyler said he didn't have ULM losing that bad. Had them at least covering. Yeah, I mean, I didn't touch anything with this one because I had no confidence left in ULM, and obviously now we see why.
Yeah, I didn't look at the over-under at 45.5. If I would have taken a look at that, it would have been interesting enough to play the over. But
Yeah, I was hoping just in general as a conference thing, like they would definitely keep it in check. Losing by 10 or 17 is very respectable because, this isn't a 7-3 or whatever Auburn team coming in. They were also very bad on the year. Now, when you look at why they're bad, their record is hellacious. I mean, they played almost all ranked teams, type of thing. So it's not like this team is as bad as their record indicated, and that's why you see this massive point total spread. But yeah, you would have hoped for conference bragging rights. We could have at least hung in there a little bit better, but
Yeah,
unfortunate that ULM has fallen off a little bit towards the end of the season.
Also hurts my feelings to look at the box score and see Jalen McLeod in there.
Yeah, I heard his name a couple times. Yeah, because that one started off. Yeah, go ahead.
He's got 6 sacks this year. He's doing phenomenal.
Yeah, unfortunately for us, it was a smart move for him to leave the Mountaineers and go over there and make just as big of a name for himself at the next level, which is also phenomenal to see, right? I mean,
it is.
I think in some respect, you tell the coaching staff, pat yourself on the back because you found that kid, and the only reason they grabbed him is because you made him noticeable here, and his talent is obvious. So, yeah. Next up, we had the 75 game, the 75 week, obviously a big time deal at Marshall. Lots of respect and thoughts and, people that they keep close to their vests, and obviously ingrained there in the helmet that they wore. Probably the coolest setup this weekend as far as jerseys are concerned. I saw somebody hand out some swagger one to, Oregon or something. It's like, man, they have 99 jerseys. Like,
very true.
And they have them just because they can, right? Marshall's doing this because it means something. So I kind of, silly, I think, to hand it to anybody but Marshall because those things look sharp as hell, and they definitely came across and won the game, most importantly, on the field, 31-19 over Coastal Carolina, getting to that 5-1 mark. And as we know now, the driver's seat in the Sun Belt East also covered that 9-point spread. I think, if I'm not mistaken, TJ and I are both kind of questioning 9 points in favor of Marshall going into this one. But, they took care of business in this one.
They did, yeah. I mean, just kind of going back and looking at the game, Coastal turned the ball over 3 times and had a field goal blocked in return for a touchdown. I mean, that's literally the difference of the game. Vasco had a pretty decent game. It was fairly even. Coastal actually outgained Marshall by 140 yards of offense. But once again, 3 turnovers and the blocked field goal return. Braxton for Marshall did have a heck of a game, 3 total touchdowns on like a 20-for-31 passing. But yeah, in close games, last week was, blowout city, right? This week, there was a lot of close games with the exception of the Auburn game and the Texas State. When you're in these really close games, kind of battling for the top of the conference, turnovers will kill you. And anytime you have a special teams play go against you for a touchdown, just hard to win like that.
Yeah. And Russ joined in here and said, "Go Herd," runs the Thundercast over there for those of you who have been tuning into that and seen him on this channel as well. But I mean, they were talking on their Spaces, their Twitter Spaces show that he does after the post-game thing, just talking about how special it is for a play like that when that blocked field goal happens on this game during this week, to happen for that fan base and, something special about that. So something else I didn't really realize someone pointed out on social media was that Coach Huff goes over and he kind of pats the 75 that's on the field before each and every game, not just for this game specifically, but he kind of like does it to honor those before every home game. So that's really cool. I did not know he was doing something like that, and glad to see him, get this team to where they're at, because I think he's a better coach than some of the fan base had given him credit for in the past and given him a hard time. And again, I think we're seeing a couple of coaches who have kind of been close to or on the hot seat lately who've shown that if you stick with it, stick with these guys a little bit longer. Now at this age of NIL and transfer portal, you've got player movement all the time. You need to have somebody and something consistent on that coaching staff. Obviously, there's going to be ones that, they've been given enough time and this and that, but you can't be firing a guy after like 3 seasons. I don't think that tells you enough about what they've been able to do. Maybe it gives you a glimpse. Like if they haven't won but 1 or 2 games, we're talking different story. But if they're competing and losing some close games, I don't know. Marv, what are your thoughts on that?
In today's world with the transfer portal, I think 3 years is ample amount of time. Like, back in the day when you had to recruit and develop, I think 3 years, because at the 3-year part, it's like, hey, this is when their first recruiting class should really be showing, right? I think in the past, 3 years is kind of like where you want to see it turn. I think in today's world, 3 years is ample amount of time for you to see a system be installed, coaches be put in the right place. And, you don't have to develop players anymore, man. You just go pluck them out of the portal. So,
True.
yeah, I think in today's day and age, if year 3 by then, if it's not trending in like the right direction, that's enough time.
Yeah, I agree. You don't have to have like I don't know, maybe by year 3 you do have to have a bowl game, kind of thing. Maybe. But if you're in a really bad spot, like let's say ULM as an example, before this year, let's just take this year out of it, right? They've been terrible for a long period of time. Like you got to give a coach like in that spot, in that type of area, I feel like you got to give them longer than 3 years just to turn things. Like you said, the year 3 should be the basis of making sure everything's kind of turned around. But he should get 4 or 5, maybe 6 before you're like, hey, it's just not working, Now,
it depends on the expectations of the program, and a lot of schools are finding out. It also depends on the buyout. If you got a $4 million buyout, then no, it's not time. But like I said, in today's world, I think 3 years is ample amount of time. If you're a program like Marshall with passionate fan base, you got great support, you've got high expectations. If you're the head coach of Marshall and you have 2 losing seasons and don't make a bowl game in 2 out of 3 years, that seat's really, really warm. But and it can go either way, right? Like they could have held on to Huff and they could be 3-7, and everyone would have been like, "Oh, we should have got rid of him last year," or it goes this way and it's 7-3, and like, "Hey, man, really, really happy we held on to him." But I'm with you. Yeah. He's a good football coach. I think he's a good recruiter. This is the question now is how long can you hold on to him?
Right. Yeah. Because hey, let's not forget he's got a victory over Notre Dame, a ranked Notre Dame team at their place on his belt. So can't forget those types of victories there. Tyler Austin saying that tradition is one reason that he loved Marshall coming to the Sun Belt as a move, and they bring a lot to the conference. I agree. It's definitely probably the single most exciting addition that we made to the conference in my mind. JMU probably a close second, Southern Miss third, and ODU was probably my least favorite move, but not because I don't think that they can't provide something. It's just kind of the least known entity, right? I mean, I think with everybody else, you kind of knew what you were getting into. So yeah, I definitely agree. Marshall, a great addition there. Artie Cat thinks it's because of the buttermilk biscuits that they're using to entice people to come play over there at Marshall. One more note on this one before we move on. AJ Green did not touch the field. Obviously the tremendous running back that they have over there at Marshall. I heard somebody say, and I don't know if Russ is still watching with us, but he was in a walking boot. Again, that's unconfirmed. So unless Russ chimes in and lets us know right now for sure if that is actually the case, that could be a big time loss. But if that's untrue, or hopefully just a very precautionary thing that's going on, they should still be sitting pretty in that driver's seat. And we'll talk about what these these outcomes look like coming up here in a little bit.
How about Marshall's a 2-point road dog going to Norfolk this weekend?
Yeah, that's way early to be putting that out there, but I don't like that at all. Russ says that Marshall loves being in the Sun Belt too. Everything just fits. I agree. They just really, really fit very, very well. The only thing that doesn't fit as well is like how far away they seem to be. Like in my mind, they were way closer until you start planning trips and stuff. I'm like, wow, that's a lot further of a drive than I had anticipated. But and he says AJ Turner was, yes, in a walking boot there. So he's not ruling him out for the last 2 games, though. That's the important part. That's what you need to know when you're talking about running the ball, controlling that clock, as well as Green has been able to do so far this season, an important piece that they'll need going forward because, they just finished the season at ODU and then at JMU. So 2 road games to end the slate for the Marshall Thundering Herd there. But again, they control their own destiny at this point. So win and you're in and you ain't got anything to worry about. So we'll see if the Herd can get there and do that. All right, and I think this one's pretty easily the surprise of the weekend. Troy takes care of Georgia Southern. Not by a lot, though.
Second biggest surprise of the weekend. We're going to get to one a little later that shocked me as well.
Yeah, okay, all right. So Troy comes up and beats Georgia Southern 28-20. And before this weekend, Georgia Southern was in the driver's seat of the Sun Belt East. Now Marshall sits there. can they keep their foot on the gas? So it's really interesting to see these musical chairs being played over here in the East Side. And the other one you're talking about. Yeah. Well, and I guess the surprising part, we'll get to that one. We'll save that. But yeah, this one, Georgia Southern came in favored at 7.5 on the Wednesday night show, a total of 54.5. Didn't quite get that many points in this one. But yeah, I mean, this one, phenomenal job by Caldwell, who kind of looked a little shaky to start off when he came in to replace Goose earlier, but he's looking pretty good now, right?
Yeah, I mean, accounted for all 4 touchdowns. I think it was 2 through the air, 2 on the ground. Georgia Southern only amassed 246 yards of offense. Here's an interesting stat. Troy was 11 for 14 on third down. And when you have third down efficiency like that, you dominate time of possession 38.5 minutes to 21.5 minutes. So, just controlled the ball, super efficient. Quarterback play was good, limited a high-powered or high-flying Eagle offense, if you will, through the air to less than 250 yards. So well played by Troy. Definitely didn't see this coming. I thought the 7.5-point spread was probably right. Figured Troy would put up a fight. But yeah, the one of the second to last place team in the West has definitely made the East Side a lot more interesting in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Austin's note here's a good one. Sunbelt better be glad we don't have any more games left. Well, you have 2, but yeah, we'd be in the driver's seat. And he's saying it's sarcasm, but he's proud of how this team has improved game over game. Yeah, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Tyler was one early on that was agreeing with some of us saying that you've got to give Parker more time as a head coach with what he had to come in and endure with the roster turnover and setting up a whole new system. It was not going to be a kind of regular or expected season as normal in Troy, but they are looking very promising moving forward. And he's got another note on that. Coach Parker said on his show that he wanted to see this team find its rhythm and make some good moves going into the offseason. I think he's accomplished that. I would 100% agree with that. This is a completely different team than was thrown out on the field earlier this season. The defense was always kind of coming around there. They've definitely come a lot further on the offensive side. We've got Ross still leading the receiving corps, and this one specifically too, with 10 catches, 95 yards for a touchdown. But you've kind of got a more even keel, running threat as well behind Taylor and Green, who tote the ball. Taylor goes for 92. Nobody scores any touchdowns on the ground except for the quarterback Caldwell. So kind of an interesting thing there. He doesn't really have but 13 yards, which is an average of just 1.1 yards, but he comes away with the only 2 touchdowns on the ground for the Trojans there in this one. But you've got to question what happens here now. We've got the Eagles with a quarterback that just walked away 2 weeks ago, and now there's a defensive player who had some comments to share after this one was over, has either left the program on his own or been dismissed. I don't know if I saw what the actual final thought was on that. But what's going on over there on Georgia Southern side, because they've always kind of last 2 seasons here kind of fallen apart towards the end. Is that happening again, or can they right this ship and maybe even get back into the conference championship talk here?
Well, they've got Coastal this weekend, and then a little hate week game against App State. So they lose those 2 games like they did the past couple of years. You think Helton Seat gets a little warm down there in Statesboro?
Yeah, I think if they fall apart again, you have to say it would be. If they go 1-1 here, they're still looking at a pretty decent bowl, I think, with a 7-4 overall mark. What were you saying?
I said they'd be 7-5 at that point. Yeah, I mean that probably gets you another year.
Yeah, I think so.
Is French a senior?
Ooh, good question. Let me pull that up real quick. I want to say he's not, but
if I'm not mistaken, Helton's kind of been
only a sophomore.
He's only okay, gotcha. Because Helton the past couple of years have been living off of senior transfer quarterbacks. I mean, it's worked out fairly well for him, but consistency really helps in anything in life. So,
yeah. Artie Katz just letting us know Coastal Carolina player out also for an arrest, he believes. Yeah. one of their former players too was a quarterback who came in with pretty high ranking, recruiting stars, whatever you want to call it at this point, and was dismissed for a number of small arrests actually leading up to. I don't know if that's the same one he's referring to now, because I think that one happened a week or two ago, but this one may be more recent. So we'll have to see. JMU versus Louisiana in Lafayette. Yo boy Carr's calling out the championship game already. Possibility. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. We'll keep rolling through these games so we can get to that. A slobber knocker of a game. I wanted to just use that term because it's fun. We had the Royal Rivalry take place in Norfolk this past weekend. 35 for the Dukes to just outlast the Monarchs, who ended up with just 32 in this one. It was a push as far as JMU covering that 3-point favorite, but they did exceed the 51.5 points. So not as much defense. I really thought this was going to be a lot more like a 14-17 type game because of how the defenses can perform. They haven't done it every single game this year, but they have been pretty good overall. So I was a little surprised to see both teams put up over 30 points in this one. What are your thoughts, or what you got to tell us about this one here, Marv?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Old Dominion kind of just has a knack for their defense, keeps them in games, makes it a little dirty and low scoring. So Barnett, James Madison, 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing. ODU was 1 for 11 on third down. That's never going to get it done. And then, honestly, James Madison had 2 really big plays. Had a 50-yard rushing touchdown by the quarterback and a 68-yard touchdown pass. Back and forth game a little bit. I would have taken James Madison laying the 3. I didn't bet on this game, but I would have taken it, even knowing that ODU's defense can keep them scrappy in games. But was a little bit surprised by that offensive output by both teams. But hey, a win's a win. Once again, 1 for 11 on third downs. And James Madison won the time of possession by 15 minutes. That's what happens when you can't convert third downs. So yeah, but I mean, if you think about that, if you were to tell a head football coach that, hey, you're going to hold the other team to 1 and 11 on third down, and you're going to dominate time of possession by 15 minutes, you would probably not think the score would be this close.
Yeah, no, definitely not. So all the credit to the Monarchs for fighting and staying in this one, definitely in front of that home crowd, which was it's a pretty good atmosphere there for sure. Like I said, I've been up to that stadium just once, but impressed with the layout. And if that place can be rocking, it can get loud in there. The student section when I went there for the game was not all that full, but it was certainly packed for this one. So definitely a great showing as far as the fan support goes there, even though I've questioned it before. I know the Monarchists got a little upset with me on that one. They definitely showed out for this one, but this rivalry is definitely a little bit more intense on the ODU side than what I've seen and heard from the JMU fans. But definitely a great show to watch on the field. Like I said, this one was definitely one to tune into. I will say that 35-32 probably just a slight bit closer than it maybe felt when you're watching it. Because they scored that one late and then tried to go for an onside kick to kind of get the ball back. It wasn't like they were driving with the ball with a chance to score at the very, very end there. However, most people that are on the outside looking in are just going to see that score and realize these are 2 pretty good teams putting the ball in the end zone. Colton Joseph, not so much through the air, only 189, no touchdowns, just 1 interception, but he did go for 3 touchdowns on the ground. Really just 35 yards rushing. So he's right there near the end zone when he's putting it in.
Yeah, no, he's exciting. He's a sophomore as well. Or is he a freshman? Redshirt freshman.
He's a true freshman, I believe. Yeah, from California.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot to be excited about as an Old Dominion fan. That defense is typically very solid. James Madison's a good team. You give up 2 really big plays, but I think the future could be bright there.
Yeah, definitely do think the future could be bright. I think I've alluded to this before, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of Ethan Vasco, not like exactly, but Vasco kind of struggled a little bit throwing the ball, and it was kind of one of those things like, hey, do what works for you, which was running the ball and getting out of those problems and escaping when he needed to. Joseph reminds me of that, right? Like, you'll learn the offense and we'll get you the playbook down and you'll be able to throw better, and we're going to work on these types of things throughout the season now and certainly in the offseason. So I'd expect a big jump for him next year if they're able to hold on to him, because someone's probably got some interesting things going on behind the scenes, as these big programs like to do when they see somebody they like. As Artie said, odd makers nailed it there with that 3-point spread for JMU. Yeah. I actually had taken a chance on this one and said ODU comes away with the victory, which doesn't look too bad now. Only a 3-point loss, but obviously not what I had called out. So the royal rivalry goes to JMU there. Okay. The odds makers did not know what they were talking about going into this one. We both, TJ and I, definitely questioned the odds makers going into this one on the show. Yeah. We said, if you want some easy money, go with Arkansas State, because Georgia State was actually favored by 2.5 points going into this one. I'm sure Ben had something to say about that, also saying that the Red Wolves would need Louisiana and Texas State to lose in order to take the Sun Belt West. And we'll get into some more of that detail here shortly. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Were you surprised to see Georgia State in the odds makers' favor before this one got kicked off?
I was happy. I listened to your podcast on Wednesday, and I put a little bit of money on Arkansas State. So thank you and TJ for confirming what I was thinking. But yeah, totally shocked. Georgia State's played a lot of competitive games, but to be favored against Arkansas State, yeah, that just seemed like easy money.
Yeah, that was very surprising there. Already says he needed a Georgia State win to help the Bobcats out. Yeah, that definitely would have helped them out. And honestly, this game, extremely close. I mean, what was it? I think it was 7-7 at half, right? Is that?
Yeah, it was.
Right?
Like the two offenses could not have been more opposite of one another. So Arkansas State only passes the ball for 97 yards, where Georgia State uses two quarterbacks to pass for almost 350. But then again, Arkansas State ran for 260 yards. Both teams were really bad on third down. Georgia State had 2 turnovers. Close games, cannot turn the ball over. And Teddy Hurst, 9 receptions, 173 yards and a touchdown. So he had himself a game. But yeah, I mean, having Georgia State favored was a little odd to me.
Yeah, definitely odd there. But, again, the odds makers knew what they were doing. I think, what'd you say, that Georgia State outgained them and had more first downs? But
Georgia State passed for 346. I don't have total yards here in front of me. It just in my show notes.
I had it earlier.
Okay, I just written down on my show notes like both teams were atrocious on third down. I think one was like 3 for 13. The other one was 4 for 11 or something like that. But yeah, once again, 2 turnovers. You can't win close games when you turn the ball over, especially when the other team doesn't give you the ball. Arkansas State had 0 turnovers. So yeah, there you go. Arkansas State's staying in the race for the West.
Yeah, and I agree with your boy Carson. Arkansas State is just kind of this weird team, and I think that's maybe why they weren't favored. Is like the trust factor is not there with the odds makers. We've seen a couple games just kind of be mind-boggling for them earlier. I mean, if you told me that Rainer was going to come into this game and throw for 95 yards, I'd have said, okay, yeah, they're going to lose.
Yeah, but then they run for 260, and you're like, huh, all right, yeah, you run for 260 yards, you typically have a pretty darn good chance of winning.
Yeah. As Ben James says, part of that rushing attack included Rainer not having to throw the ball because he goes for over 100 all by himself. So.
He ran for 114.
Yeah. Do we think Butch Jones is turning the corner as Arkansas State coach? I thought actually that was going to happen going into this season. I thought last year that kind of started. And then this season has happened, and I'm not been blown away by what they've been able to produce on the field. Do I think they can kind of consistently stay at this level for sure with him and going forward? Yes, but I don't know if I still see enough to say he's just going to explode all of a sudden and have like a 1 or 2 loss season on his hands. I'm not comfortable saying that with what we've seen from the Red Wolves thus far. So our cat says there was hundreds in attendance. Yeah. Atlanta, not known for the attendance capital of the Sun Belt. That's for sure.
That's got to be a tough to play as an opposing team just with 0 atmosphere. Hell, it's got to be a tough place to play as a Georgia State player with 0 atmosphere.
Yeah, that's a good point. And unfortunately, I've seen at least 1 or 2 kids already decommit. Obviously, is that only the stuff on the field or is it something else? Probably never truly know. But the record's not helping, right? I mean, that's definitely not helping. Ben doesn't agree that they're weird. They just
are like where they are located. if they could gain some momentum, they could get the thing rolling, right? Like Atlanta's a
Yeah.
happy place. They've got, even though it's a weird facility, it's a good facility. It's a former Major League Baseball stadium, right? Like,
Yeah.
they have the potential, but just unfortunately, they've never had a ton of consistency. Even when Sean Elliott was there, I mean, I think 7 wins, maybe they have an 8-win season under him. I know they went to several bowl games back to back and maybe one or two, but they just haven't had that breakout 9-10 win season and been able to sustain it.
Yeah, that's true. Chris Howell, Ben was saying he didn't think they were very weird, just didn't know how to play. With Chris Howell's probably got a little bit better of an explanation. And we truly are a weird team. So much talent being unused. Our OC is awful. But yeah, it's dependent on what Butch Jones does over there. And yeah, Ben is agreeing. The OC at DC that needs to go at A-State. Yeah, and Artie Cat is.
I'm hoping that's a Mike Jones reference because that would be funny.
Yeah, that would be very good. Yo boy Carr says GSU can't compete with Georgia and Georgia Tech. Yeah, they definitely have a tough slate on their hand when you kind of control the Atlanta market without even truly being it. Well, Georgia Tech is right there in Atlanta, but Georgia controls that market even more than Tech does, and they're not even in Atlanta, right? But yeah, they're currently working on their baseball field. They'll be doing that for a little while, but they are going to have a nice one when it's finally said and done. They can be not the bus lot boys anymore, right? Is that what we saw that their name was for baseball?
Yes, at least that's what we dubbed them.
Yeah, lovingly dubbed them, right? Now we're getting to, I think, what you thought was the most shocking game of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of had the conversation last week, and a lot of questions like, hey, can the Raging Cajuns possibly break into the playoffs? And it was just like, yeah, just keep winning. And then obviously the quarterback goes down. That stinks, right? But, man, South Alabama had them down like 24-3 at one point. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, like they blew them out, and they came back late. They had a failed 2-point conversion to tie the game with like a minute and a half left to go. So, kudos to the Cajuns with a backup quarterback for fighting like that. But I kind of felt like Vegas. I thought they were going to cruise to 9-1 and 6-0 in conference and just kind of say, hey, we're the top dog. No one else can come and catch us. Obviously, been an App fan, watching South Alabama come into Boone. Like, you knew they had the potential to be explosive on offense. And Gio had a phenomenal game, threw for 285. But, yeah, I was not expecting this outcome at all.
Yeah. And like you said, threw for 285. Didn't throw for any touchdowns. Actually threw an interception on the day, but he did rush for 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like you said, it's one of those weird stat lines when you just look at his passing statistics. You're like, yeah, he threw for a good amount of yards, but he didn't really do anything. And then you look at the rushing and getting into the end zone twice there.
Yeah,
fluff ball through. I mean,
caught 11 for 170 yards. So he had a heck of a game. But, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
couldn't have started better for them, right? 24-3.
Yeah.
But I know we were talking about this before the game, and I'd love for anyone that knows is Woolridge, how bad is that injury? Is he out for the next game, the rest of the season? I didn't watch it. Dom, you said it looked bad, but it maybe looked bad is the wrong term. You said it was. You could tell he was going to be injured immediately. Yeah.
As soon as he got tackled, like and came up like just a little bit, I was like, ooh, he's in pain. Like there's something wrong. That's not normal. I have not heard the full diagnosis. I did not get to busy enough day at work. I could not listen to the Sunbelt coaches press conferences that they do put together. They put that together all in one thing. You can watch like an hour and a half of coaches press conferences if you're really interested in all 14 Sunbelt teams coach speak. Yeah.
Hey, you can look up at Rage and Review. They'll let you know what's going on.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Very true. Probably the easiest thing to do is just listen to those guys because it'll be a little more entertaining as well. Your boy Carr said no real word. Okay, so nothing yet. Maybe close to the vest. And the only good thing is Chandler Fields did go quite a few games last year, so he's not incapable, and we see that. And coming in relief, going for 185 throws for 1 touchdown. I was very impressed with that final drive. Obviously, they did not get the 2-point conversion. Didn't love the play call on the 2-point conversion, by the way. But they were inches from getting that 2-point conversion. Actually, let me take that back, actually, because after they ran the play, there was a flag thrown for illegal formation, so it wouldn't have counted anyway. And I think Coach Daz was actually very upset, and I don't know the intricacies of the rule, right? Like, should that flag have been thrown before the snap? But it's not a dead ball foul, right? Like you have to snap the ball for it to actually be an illegal formation, right? Like you can't throw that beforehand. I don't know if that's what he was arguing. I'm not sure. Maybe he was arguing that they should have reviewed it, because if they got into the end zone, then they would have to decline the penalty, kind of thing, and force another chance, even though it's further back type of thing. I don't know what he was arguing, but it was a pretty close finish here. And obviously a tale of two halves, as you said, up 23-3 at the half, or
24-3.
24-3. You're right. 24-3 at the half. And then Cajuns kept them completely scoreless in that entire second half. So yeah, a little too long to wake up, and you pay the price. That's why you just can't have this kind of stuff happen in these games. South Alabama finally reduced the stupid penalties, at least in the first half anyways. Yeah, they very clean first half. Very impressed with what they were able to do. It looked, like you said, Marv, it kind of looked like that game at App. I mean, just looked like it could do no wrong there for a little while. So Artie Cat says they need another Lafayette loss next week as well. Yeah, we'll have to see, as they've got Troy and ULM to finish out their season. Warren says, where is the coach's presser played? You can find that on YouTube if you follow the Sunbelt YouTube channel. They play that, I believe it's every Monday. It may come out Tuesday because of putting them all together, but I think they still get it out on Monday. It just might be a little bit later, but you could definitely find that. Again, pretty long, but if you are into that and you definitely need to watch some stuff, I've done it before. Just try not to fall asleep. Oh man! All right, in the game that ended it for the night. Actually, this one might have been wrapped up before the actual other game. I think they started at the same time. I think they both started at 7 Eastern, 6 Central. But anyway, Texas State hammers Southern Miss 58-3. Yeah, this one was definitely over early. TJ and I both also told you all to take Texas State in the 26.5 points. I'm not sure what we thought on that total, but hey, Texas State took care of it all by themselves. I'm sure Artie was throwing a little party in this one, because they just, a win is what you expect at this point as a Bobcat fan, especially over this team here who struggled all season. But to put out the output they did and win probably the most impressive game over USM all season is got to be having Bobcat fans feeling pretty good, right, Marv?
704 yards of total offense should make any fan feel really, really, really good. McLeod, 335, 4 touchdowns, did throw a pick. They ran for 266 as a team, held USM to 9 for 20 passing. Here's the craziest stat, though. Would you believe that Southern Miss actually had a 10-minute time of possession advantage in the game?
I wouldn't. No. I won't lie, because of everything that was going on in some of these other games that were closer. This one got probably the least bit of my attention all weekend.
Of course.
So this one, and actually, what's funny is the other one that was kind of a blowout score with ULM and Auburn actually got a ton of my attention, because that was the first game of the Sun Belt slate that was going pretty much all by itself until at least like right at the 3:30 kickoff. So I actually watched way more of that one than probably should have. But this one was kind of that way as well. Like, I kept checking in, and I'm like, well, okay, I'll check back on it later type of thing, see if it gets closer. And there wasn't really any need to keep this one on the screen full time. So just really checking in on that one. Artie says this one was like a game of Mortal Kombat. Finish them. Yo Boy Carr saying Southern Miss just has so much potential, and it's all going to waste. Yeah, they definitely have some players on the roster, still really good players. Just not going to stick out when your team's only 1-9 overall and 0-6 in conference play. Conference play, excuse me. Georgia State, you're next. That's what Artie is saying. Yeah,
I think this is the offensive production that everyone thought that Texas State could be consistently week after week to begin the season. Who knows? I know Southern Miss is not that great, but maybe they're hitting their stride right in time, and a couple of things go their way. Maybe they sneak in to the conference championship game. They do have, they got Georgia State this week in Slam Marcos. 20-point favorites. Whew. Anytime I see a spread, anytime you see a spread that big, man, it just makes me so nervous. Like
I know,
26
right?
points that's a lot. Like a lot of things got to go right. But yeah, I think they go to 7-4 this week.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe assumption. It's just by, like you said, how much. But Artie Cat was also shocked by that stat. Yeah, I didn't realize. I mean, like I said, I didn't keep this one on the TV all that much. But I guess when I did jump over, it did seem like Southern Miss always seemed to have the ball, though. So kind of like, oh, I just timed it weird, you know.
which is weird. Like, how do you always have the ball and you only score 3 points? But I guess when the other team is track meeting for touchdowns all the time, just here's your ball, you do something with it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Tyler's saying this may be for another time, but if y'all discuss on another show, how do you feel about the Sun Belt at the executive level? I personally don't feel they fight for better media deals and exposure. We add historic teams with tradition, but then we don't really change anything about exposure. All my opinion. I know a lot of us at Troy feel similarly.
Ooh, that's
yeah.
I think we've talked about this in the past because I think we talked about when the ESPN deal and the bowl tie-ins. There's a contract. When can that be renegotiated? Is it 2031? Like we're several. Like the current contract we're in is pretty locked in. So, yes, I agree with you, Tyler. I think that now that everything has happened with more conference realignment, I unfortunately think it puts us not in a better position. I think if you look at Group of 5 conferences. Like, yeah, we're the best. We should be getting all the exposure for Group of 5. But, man, those Power 4 conferences are going to get all the best TV slots because I was just watching Monday Night Football, and it's like you got Alabama, Oklahoma this weekend. Like, Oklahoma's not that great, but you just look at the names, and you're like, that's what they're paying TV money for. But I agree with you, Tyler. I think that we should have better bowl tie-ins, and I think we should have a better TV deal. I hate Tuesday night games and Wednesday night games. I think, the better you get, you should have Thursday and Friday night games. But hey, at least we're not the MAC.
Yeah, I don't want to lean on it as much as the MAC does. And yeah, I agree with you. The timing of whatever deal, I think at the time the deal looked better, and then as soon as it was made, probably within months, maybe not even just like over a year or something, all these other deals start coming out and you realize like, man, they screwed us, you know what I mean? But it was too late at that point in time. The only possible fortunate thing is if there is a little bit more expansion. The good and the bad with that is anytime you add more teams, you take from the pot that you're given. So you can't really add to this conference at all in the current configuration because you're taking that money and dividing it into more pieces. So that really can't happen. So the only way that could happen is if you go into a contract with new schools and with a broadcast partner kind of at the same time. Because you need to know that they're willing and able to restructure your current deal with the addition of other schools. And honestly, I think at this point, you're really only looking at 2 schools. Maybe you add 1 to the East, 1 to the West to have 8 and 8. And again, that doesn't affect basketball. It doesn't affect baseball because they don't have divisions within those sports. So it's really just a football move. But that's where the money is. So that's where you have to focus it.
Yep.
On, other sport sides, I think baseball's kind of taking care of itself. I think there's enough following. We've seen it, right? And Marv and Seth can tell you throughout the whole spring of covering baseball for this conference, there is far more interest, intrigue, fan appeal, whatever you want to call it, for baseball than there is for basketball in this conference. Really, basketball only sparks up around conference tournament time and March Madness.
Yeah.
So baseball is fine. I don't really think there's really much you could do with baseball. Again, maybe you add like an ECU who brings a lot of possibility back to football and certainly a ton in baseball and actually playing very well in basketball so far this year too. I think they're 4-0 to start the season. So
yeah, I just looked up our deal. It's through the 2030-2031 academic year. So that's pretty locked in. I don't know. Someone can fact check me on this, but it says each Sunbelt school receives $2.5 million a year for the deal. Obviously, ESPN and NCAA have an 8-year, $920 million agreement for media rights. So we're not getting a lot of that money, but we're absolutely locked into our deal. I don't know if that includes bowl game negotiations. I feel like, obviously the playoffs now and having some of the bowl games being home hosted games kind of probably screws that up a little bit. Not having the true New Year's Six. But I know as a Sun Belt fan that I would like to see some new bowl games, because once you've been in this conference long enough and you consistently make bowl games, you feel like you've been to every single place multiple times.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. There is some restructuring on the Bulls that's probably coming, especially after this first year when they kind of sort out that 12-team playoff a little bit further too. I know by being down there for Sunbelt Media Days, there was a different bowl than we have typically been linked to. That should be one that we probably have a good possibility with. We'll go over this stuff here in just a second. I'll add that back to the screen now as we look at the current standings across the Sun Belt. Again, the only two divisions left in all of college football at the Division I level. Marshall and Louisiana both sit atop the East and the West with 5-1 records. We've got 5 teams with 4-2 records, including Georgia Southern, JMU on the East, Arkansas State, Texas State, and South Alabama over there on the West. We have one team at 3-3, which is ULM. 3 again at 2-4, which Coastal, App, and Troy. And we've got 2 winless teams in Georgia State and Southern Miss. Okay, so with that look, and obviously you see the overall records over there to the side, we have currently 6 guaranteed bowl teams, which would be Marshall, Georgia Southern, JMU. So 3 over there on the East, and Louisiana, Texas State, and Arkansas State. So 3 over there on the West. Marv, I think there's probably a possibility of some more. What do you think is kind of a realistic slot there?
8. I think 8. So if you look at it, Monroe could get bowl eligible this week. South Alabama plays Southern Miss. So you have to think that South Alabama is going to get to that 6 win and be bowl eligible after this weekend. Coastal Carolina at 5-5. They got Georgia Southern. I can't see who their last game is. I think 8. I think Coastal and South Alabama for sure get bowl eligible. ULM could as well.
Yeah, what's funny is we did not compare this. I don't know how I did not think of the word compare there for a second, but we did not compare notes before we did this. I wrote down the most possible bowls we could get teams to, which I knew this coming in would not match last year's 12. Okay, that's almost impossible to replicate, but we could technically get 11 teams into bowls. Actually, in a technicality, we may be able to get 12 if Troy wins 5 and gets a waiver. Extremely unlikely.
App could win 5 and get a waiver because of the missed game.
True, but I have App. If you're talking about most bowls, I have them, winning enough at the end to be part of the 6-win team.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yes, I mean that is also a possibility because they played one less game. I did go with the realistic number as 8 as well, okay. And then obviously if nothing improves for a couple of these teams, we're going to be stuck with just 6. The good news is if we have those 6, those are 6 pretty good teams to put into bowl games that I would think would be, it's hard to say this because you don't know who they'd be possibly going up against, but the likely favorite in a few of those bowl games, if not most of them, in that regard.
Yeah, like I said, South Alabama's got Southern Miss this weekend, so I see them going to 6-5. That'll give us 7, and then I'm going to see who Coastal's got. Georgia Southern. We know they're sliding, perhaps might be the wrong word, and then they end up with Georgia State. I see them winning one of those 2 games, so I'm going to call it 8, and then who does Monroe have to finish the season? I feel really good about 8. How's that?
Arkansas State and Louisiana. You're gonna stick with 8? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with 8. That's tough. I mean, not saying Monroe could not win one of those 2 games, but they definitely have a tougher schedule ahead of them than Coastal does.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and improve a graphic because I think it would be helpful if everyone sees it at the same time. But this is what we're going to go with here with just the standings as we talk through it right now. So yeah, I've got it laid out with teams that stand a chance for conference championship game. And obviously that's Marshall, Georgia Southern, James Madison, and ODU on the East. On the west side, you've got Louisiana, Texas State, Arkansas State, South Alabama, and ULM still in possibilities. As far as teams that don't stand any chance for the championship but do stand chances for bowl games, that would be just Coastal and App State. As we know, Georgia State, Troy, and USM all eliminated from that, again, unless the unlikelihood that Troy wins the last 2 games and then claims a waiver because not enough other teams are eligible. Again,
What would they get the waiver for? They play 2 FCS schools?
No, I guess just a waiver of, hey, we have 5 wins. If you don't have enough teams, we could take a spot if kind of need be type of thing. A-State wants salute to Veterans Bowl because A-State men's basketball plays the next day in Birmingham.
That'd be cool.
All right. Yeah,
that would be very
cool
convenient.
Yeah, it would be. ODM versus ULM. ODU versus ULM for maximum sicko. Yeah. Actually, if you really want to get sick, you go Georgia State versus USM. There you go. That's a real sicko move there. But yeah, so to get back to this, we've got who these teams finish up with, and I've got some. I won't say who I think might end up in the championship game, but I'm going to lay this out. So Georgia Southern, to me, has the easiest schedule left over on the east side as they finish with at Coastal Carolina and then versus App at home.
I'm
not saying those games.
I see them dropping a game. I just see it.
I see it very possible, but as far as like the records are concerned and what you're comparing against some of these other teams, like Marshall has at ODU, at JMU. To me, you got 2 road games, and one of them's against a team that's battling for you at the top. And ODU's still battling as well, so it's not like they're out of it. So that one's not – I mean, I would say that's easier than them for sure. James Madison has at App State and versus Marshall. Again,
they have the
just Marshall being there. Yeah. And then ODU has versus Marshall and then at Arkansas State, which I actually have ODU facing the toughest uphill climb on that east side. So not only are they at the bottom of this list currently at 3-3, they also have the toughest slate in my mind to finish up the East because Marshall's at the top. So
essentially Marshall and JMU could play a de facto championship game knockoff.
A playoff.
A playoff to get into the championship game.
Yeah. Artius wants them just to stock up more beer for wherever Texas State ends up. Yes, for those that don't remember, they drank the stadium dry last year. So definitely stock up on the beer for those Bobcats fans. On the west side, I've done the same type of thing. I think Arkansas State has the easiest slate left as they play host to both ULM and ODU. So 2 home games to end the season. At that point in time, can you get the victory over ULM and then ODU? Again, I'm leaning towards that one being the easiest. As far as the toughest is concerned, I'm saying ULM because they have to travel to Arkansas State and then play the Cajuns who sit at the top of the conference. So both of those teams that sit in 3-3 on the East and the West with ODU and ULM at 3-3, I've got them as the toughest road to get all the way up at the top. Obviously because you have to climb all those spots, but you also play tough teams. ULM finishes with Troy and Louisiana finishes with Troy and ULM. Texas State finishes with Georgia State and USA, or South Alabama, if you want to go with that name. And South Alabama finishes with at Southern Miss and Texas State. So, yeah, you've got at least one good, hard, tough game and one probably easier game for those 2 teams when you're looking at it because of Georgia State and USM being in the mix there, winless against teams that are battling for a spot in the championship game. So it's going to be real interesting to go down the stretch here.
The real wild card here is how is Wooldridge? How is he entered? Can he play? That's the real wild card.
Yeah, it's definitely a wild card, and I think you have to say the same for AJ Green over there at Marshall. I mean, that is a game changer.
Yeah,
a huge piece of the time of possession for that Marshall Thundering Herd. I mean, they have Ethan Payne back there who can tote the rock, so it's not like they don't have somebody incapable, but he's just a different style running back than what Green can bring to the table. So, yeah, they've got both of the favorites as currently sit atop these conference or divisions in this conference, and you've got question marks at important positions for both teams. So there is
Who you're picking? Where's the game? Who hosts the game, and who do they play?
Jeez.
I'll put you on the spot.
I actually did not write that down. I was gonna try and have that ready for Wednesday because I wanted to look over a couple more things before I said it. But I'll give something now and see if I change my mind. I'm gonna go. Oh man. Well, here's one thing we'll look at. So Marshall is 6-0 at home, but they struggle on the road. They're just 1-3 away from the Joan.
Do they play at James Madison?
They play at ODU and at James Madison.
Yeah. Okay.
2 road games to end the season. That makes me really nervous, especially if Green's not healthy and ready to go. Okay.
And James Madison comes to Boone this weekend and then hosts. All right. That makes my
host Marshall. And so even if they end up with the same record, but JMU gets that victory over Marshall to end the year, they jump in and they get the East spot. I'm gonna lean towards that right now, right at this very second with the unknown with Green. You have a healthy Green. I'm probably changing my mind a little bit, but I don't know that, so I have to lean on what I do know, which is JMU can score the ball, right? And they have a pretty good defense now. They did allow more than I expected to ODU, but we'll see. Okay, so I guess my pick in the East at this very second is JMU. Who's your pick in the East, Marv?
JMU.
Yeah, for the same type of reasons? You got something different? You just trust them more?
Even with Green, I think James Madison at home can take care of Marshall. God, man, I don't know if they have any problems with App this weekend. I think they're too much. So, yeah, I think they waltz in at 10-2, 6-2 in conference. My question is, in the West, if Woolridge can play, I don't even think he needs to play this weekend. I think they could win this weekend without him. But if he can play the following week, I think they win. I think it's Cajuns versus James Madison. The only question I have is where would that game be hosted? If they – let's say Cajuns drop one. They both come in. Well, shit, if they drop one, then, yeah, then James Madison would host it, have the better overall record. Same conference record, better overall. Is that how it will be done?
Same conference record. The first tiebreaker is head-to-head. And yeah, that's the other thing I got to do. I got to find out all the tiebreakers all the way down. I don't think it's overall record. I think that's one of the last pieces. It's a lot of in-conference stuff before they get to that.
I'll go James Madison, Raging Cajuns at a half empty just because it's under construction, Cajun Stadium.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, right? Like the weirdest championship game of all time is in a half-filled stadium. Not half-filled, but, only can seat half, I think it would be a pretty –
yeah, not because they don't have the fan base, just because of construction. Right. That's my prediction.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I actually think, I trust the Cajuns to get it done too. I don't see them losing anymore, even if Fields is the guy for me. Just because, like I said, I've seen enough of him out of him last season to know that he is capable of running this offense. They just didn't wake up in time against South Alabama to me. But again, that second half they shut him out completely. So I have a lot of trust in that Cajun defense to just not play that poorly yet again. The offense, I think, can get it done. They've got some capable running backs with Bill Davis over there. I think they can do it. The interesting part is if they do slip up, I think Texas State gets it done and wins the last 2 against Georgia State for sure. South Alabama is not an easy matchup, but I would trust Texas State more than I trust South Alabama just because South Alabama's had some questionable games as well. The problem is if they end up with the same record, Louisiana won the head-to-head matchup and still takes the West and still hosts that game overall. So, yeah. And then you got South Alabama who's still right there, and they play Southern Miss. So I, like you said, fully expect them to win that one. And then if they do upset Texas State, they have the inside track because they just beat Louisiana head-to-head. So
essentially, if Louisiana wins this weekend, they win the West.
Yeah.
Okay.
They wrap it up.
All right. Well, there it is.
Yeah. Which is not the case in the East. East will not be wrapped up no matter what really happens. So that's why
James, if Marshall wins this weekend, App beats JMU.
Oh, I guess that's Oh. Well, no, because Marshall could lose the last game, Georgia Southern could win, and then Georgia Southern has the head-to-head over Marshall. So, yeah, see, it's too many variables. They can't.
This is what makes it. I would rather have it like this than it already be decided.
Yes, I do like that. I mean, obviously, we don't like where our team is at, but yeah, this is the fun part of what it is. Now, the only downside is because of the Cajuns' loss, there's 0% chance of any 12-team playoff for any Sun Belt team, if you ask me.
I agree. I mean, with the way Boise State's playing, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, Boise State, Tulane. If Army somehow springs the upset, which I think there's no chance in hell, I think they have
consider Washington State for that, since they're not part of a Power 4 conference. No,
I don't think that's even a possibility. That, to my knowledge, I've not been hearing that at all.
Host, okay.
Yeah, it's the highest ranked team in the CFP, which I guess is different from the selection committee for the 12-team playoff, right? Is it all the same? There's so many rankings now. It's like, what the hell do I keep up with?
RPI. Let's just look at RPI.
Yeah, just go to baseball route. Just throw the RPI. It's the most important statistic in the game. Okay, Washington State would have to be an at-large bid. Makes sense. Progressive knowledge. I think Cajuns have to win both I think Cajuns have to win both. If South wins both. Not sure how Arkansas State play since they beat South Alabama. Yeah, it's like a puzzle right now. There's so many. One more weekend we have a little bit clear, but there'll still be question marks no matter what happens. I feel like so.
I think the East will look a heck of a lot more clear, probably down to James Madison and Marshall. Like whoever wins that game wins the East. But you could still have a massive jumble of 4 teams in the West because of South Alabama beating the Raging Cajun. I mean, it could be a lot of scoreboard watching the next couple weekends.
Yeah, there'll definitely be a lot of scoreboard watching for sure, especially after we're all trying to get over our Thanksgiving food comas. How much more fun is it in the Sun Belt with lots of teams that can win the conference rather than FCS for App fans? Yeah, I mean, I think this is the point that people wanted for a long time. It's kind of funny that you're coming at it from an App State specific standpoint, because that was the question mark, right? Like, we need to be challenged. This is, it's easy to win. And then we got in here and it was kind of easy there for the first couple of years. This conference is exactly what everybody always wanted. Close regional rivals that we still had or brought back, and very competitive. Well, look at this conference from top to bottom, sans Georgia State and Southern Miss this year, and tell me it's not completely up in the air. At this point, it's crazy to see how close this conference is.
Yeah, I will say, though, as I was a student during App State's championship years, man, those playoff runs were a heck of a lot of fun, and I would not trade that for anything. I'm super happy where we are, but 05, 06, and 07 were a ton of fun.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun. The playoffs can't really be replicated, but like we've just said, these are de facto playoff games. Let's say what
there are. Listen, I would much and on October 5th, I'd much rather be playing any team on here than Elon or Furman. Do not get me wrong, but those playoffs when the brackets come out and hosting playoff games and back in the day when the championship game was in Chattanooga, which is just a couple hour drive from Boone. Those days were phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely were. The CFP top 25 is constructed by the committee that poll is directly used to get the 12-team playoff teams. Again, top 5 ranked conference champions and the next best 7 separate from the AP poll. Yeah, at this point, like, why even have the AP once this starts coming out? Like, just
do
AP away with it.
Or null and void.
Yeah. Just
week 9 forward.
Chuck them out. Yeah, it's this. The CFP, I would be a lot more enthralled and be diving deep into it had Louisiana not lost, because I'd be trying to figure out which way they get in, right? Like, okay, they're our only hope. I got to figure out which way they get in. But unfortunately, like I said, at this point in time, I think that's over. That's next year talk at this point. Gotta love the division setup. It's definitely more entertaining than the super conferences. Yeah, I mean, At this point, this is why they wanted to keep the divisions. And I've said this, and I said this last week on the other show on Wednesday. Unfortunately for some of us, the power conferences kind of got exactly what they wanted with tough, close contests. You know, some of their conferences are still up in the air. And I didn't really want to see that happen because you wanted to be like, I told you this wouldn't work, you know, all this stuff. Well, the good news is the Sun Belt still got all that going on, like you said, and like we've talked about. This conference being this close at this time of season, or time of the season, I guess I should. It's fine to say that one, is just really, really fun. It's what makes it fun. I mean, I saw a couple people ask about what are the scenarios? How does it play out? And like, you could spend all day doing this, and then this weekend will happen, and you have to redo the whole thing because it's all going to be different coming into next week. So yeah, this is really, really fun. And one of the reasons they did keep the divisions, I did question it because I said, what if one year you have, let's just use the top at the East right now. You have Marshall and Georgia Southern both undefeated, and they don't play till the last game. So one of them will have one loss, but over here on the West, you already have a bunch of teams with 2 and 3 losses. And now your 2 best teams are technically playing for one division, but they're going to play like a 3-loss team from the other side. That will occasionally happen. But I do think for the most part, we are going to see kind of the best in the East and the best in the West be the top 2 teams, because that's how it's been happening, luckily. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like the East versus the West. You know, best 2 teams meet at a home site for the team with the best record. I think that's it's very cool because it's the last one left.
Yeah, that's very true. And he says, to be honest, he did the typo earlier with the CFO. I said the CFP, but he says the chief financial officers does have a nice ring to it considering the committee's antics. Cough, cough.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
It's going to muddy when Troy wins on Saturday. Yes, Troy can definitely continue throwing a wrench into the plans of the teams at the top for sure if they beat the Cajuns this Saturday. If you didn't check it out, Coach Parker, I guess, had said if the Trojans won, he would take the team to Buc-ee's, and he stayed true to his word. And there's some great clips of him and the boys from the team all grabbing some stuff and telling you what they grabbed from Buc-ee's. And then Parker's got this massive laundry list of a receipt that he pays for everything at the end. So again,
I don't even want to know what that bill was. You got to take he take the staffers and everybody.
I would assume it was probably everybody, but really they just focused on the players. So I can't say for certainty, but yeah, I mean, you gotta love the camaraderie. Yeah, I mean, I said on a comment, I've never even seen a Buc-ee's yet. Like, I haven't driven by one, nothing. I haven't been anywhere close to one. We have one coming close in Burlington.
Yes.
Eventually.
Yes.
So at some point I will get to one, but at this point I've never been to one. So I thought that was really cool. And I'm sure, the college kids go crazy over a Buc-ee's because they probably don't see them all the time either. So
the most very station you'll ever walk into.
And Artie says, does NIU still have a shot? I'm pretty sure he's being facetious because I'm sure he knows that they don't. And Ben is saying, no, they are 6-4. Yeah, not a good. This is the one thing. Like, if Notre Dame loses just one more game, get them the hell out of here because you've already lost to this not impressive NIU team. And if you get a second loss, I don't think you're a 12-team playoff member. But apparently right now they're pretty high up. I think the last I've seen, I think they're the 8 seed playing Penn State in the first round.
It's Notre Dame. I would say they'll screw up somewhere along the way, but they already have.
Yeah, they already have, and apparently they've made up for it. The good news for them is, unfortunately for us, they're not in a conference and they're not made to go into a conference, so they can schedule like 7 ranked teams, and it's going to improve their strength of schedule and give them the chances to rectify a loss like that. If Sunbelt adds 2 more teams, they will get rid of divisions. I don't know if they'll have to. If you come in with a clean 8-8, you can still go with the divisions. In fact, you might add divisions in basketball and maybe even in baseball if you go to 8-8. It might make things a little bit easier. Or I don't want this, but the pod aspect has been thrown out. You have like 4 divisions of 4 type of thing.
I hate the pod aspect.
No, I don't want it either, but I could see the pods, regionally, having more games, maybe for another sport. I would not want it for football. So
I
yeah,
think it might make sense for your non-revenue generating sports, but yeah, not football.
yeah. Tyler says, yeah, it was 3 charter buses full for the Buc-ee's trip. Man, that's a lot of money.
I'm saying he spent $3,000 at Buc-ee's.
Hey, that's chump change to Coach Parker, man. That's chump change. Beaver nuts are good and massive restrooms. That's what Artie's letting us know. Artie probably has like 5 Buc-ee's down there in Texas. I feel like it's probably just a whole bunch of them down that way. And we got a Buc-ee's as overrated tourist trap from Infernal Sports.
I'll tell you one thing. So both of those guys are right. Beaver nuggets are phenomenal. They are tourist traps, but dude, they have surprisingly good food. Like they literally have like, I don't want to call it a barbecue restaurant inside this place, but like brisket, pulled pork, like coming out fresh all the time.
Nice.
The food there is for a gas station is phenomenal. Yes, they do have large, clean restrooms, but honestly, Don, the first time you pull up to one, there's like 80 gas pumps. It's unreal. They're massive.
I have heard that like when they open a new one, like they stop the interstate because there's so many people that try and get off on an exit to like get to one. And I'm like, all right, I don't know if I need to get into that situation, but if I go to one that's not absolutely insane, I'd like to enjoy it.
When they opened the one in Gatlinburg, we were happened to be on the way to Gatlinburg. Like it had been open maybe a week. It was an hour wait to get off the interstate and get into the gas station.
What?
Yeah, no, we didn't wait for it. We hit it on the way out. But yeah, I mean, literally traffic backed up off the interstate to go to a freaking gas station.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good. Whoever does their marketing deserves a raise. They've done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I heard it, I would have never thought gas station. So that's one mark that's like a check. I mean, Sheetz is kind of the same thing. Like it doesn't sound like a gas station necessarily. But Buc-ee's sounds like a play place, like fast food chain more than like a gas station, which has that part. Do they have like a play place for kids in this thing? It sounds like it's a whole city in here.
I don't think so, but it's like a mini Walmart. I mean, you can buy a grill. Yeah, it's insane.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Kicker from Australia was going to get beer, but coach said you're not old enough in the States.
That's awesome.
He's probably like, what is this? Oh,
what, he tried to get a couple Fosters for the road?
Oh yeah, gosh.
Oil cans.
That's so gross. Foster's. Do they still make those ridiculously sized cans? Is that what they do?
The only way you can get a Foster's, and they're called oil cans. Oh man, me and my buddy from Ohio have a tradition when we hang out. We always get together during football season, and the way our tradition starts is you have to start your day before you can have anything. You have to have an oil can. That's the rule. And by the time you drink one of those, you really don't want to have too much more because it's 26 warm by the end of it. And Foster's isn't the best beer on the face of the earth, but I don't know how we started that tradition, but it's been going strong for a long time. And yeah, it's the only way you can get them. Well, that's the only way I've ever found them.
Yeah, I don't recall ever seeing small cans of Foster's, so I guess that makes sense. And I definitely have never seen a bottle of them.
No, never seen a bottle. Seen the oil cans and on draft at an Outback Steakhouse. That's it.
Ooh, you know what sounds really good right about now? A bloomin' onion.
Oh, yeah, don't tempt me with a good time.
Oh man, yeah. We did have Austin saying we should ask the Notre Dame to join our conference. We would do the most Sun Belt unconventional thing ever. I don't really want that in there, but it would be like the funniest thing because be like, we probably would be the Sun Belt as a whole would probably be the only conference who would allow Notre Dame to come in and like keep everything how they usually do it, besides like the schedule, obviously. But like, you know, the reason they're not joining a conference is right. They have like this contract with NBC to air their games. So the ACC is not going to go for that. The Big Ten's not going to go for that. The Sun Belt would probably say, do whatever the hell you want. Come on in, but you got to play us. And
that would just guarantee that 6 Sun Belt games are broadcast on NBC every year.
True. I'll take it.
Because they'd be in South Bend. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not crazy out of the realm. I mean, Marshall's close, obviously. They just played each other a couple years ago anyway. Yeah, Notre Dame, they've already got a backdoor deal with the ACC. Like if they ever needed to, I mean, they joined the ACC during the COVID season. So that was actually an official year that they were a member of the ACC for football. And they're pretty much an ACC member for every other sport. So, yeah. Tyler says, good show, fellas. I need spreadsheets on Wednesday night. Yeah, I need spreadsheets to keep it all straight. It's insanity to try and keep all this up. But I'm going to try and get a graphic where we can nail it down a little bit tighter, maybe a couple slides to fit it all in adequately. I'll just see, because I see Artie's word here in this next one. HEB is good. I've heard of this place, Heb. I don't know if people call it Heb or spell out HEB. I don't know. It's like a grocery store, but I've never been to one. Although the beer section in some is not adequate any longer. FYI, Australians hate Foster's beer. I was obliterated in Sydney in 2003. Don't tell anyone. Sorry, already read it out loud.
Hey, here's the reality: is Americans don't like Foster's either. It's just a novelty.
Yeah, that's true. And there's a couple of things that probably go that way for people, but yeah, Foster's is definitely one that I don't really remember ever having or desiring. But I've heard the same thing.
I'm bringing you a Foster's a tailgate on Saturday. Get it.
Oh, man. Vernal Sports ending it out here with the comment saying all this effort just for Notre Dame to go 4-4 in Sun Belt play. Yeah, that would be the greatest thing ever. If they ever had to do it, because there's no way they'd actually do it. But if they ever had to do it and they'd come in here thinking they own the place and run this place, and Marshall's already beaten them once. I know App State fans would love to have a shot. I'm sure everybody else in the conference would love to have a shot, especially the teams that are up near the top right now. So yeah, I don't think Notre Dame's joining anytime soon, but hey, if they do, all for it. Fine. Why not? I love to hate somebody. Like, I'll pass on Liberty being a full-time conference member, but I would love to hate them still.
That's next week. You get to hate somebody next week.
Yeah, there you go. I'll take it. Oh man, any final thoughts as we wrap it up here, Marv?
No, man. Looking forward to a good ending to the football season and seeing how all this stuff shakes out.
Yeah, man. Me too. Can't wait to finally tailgate with you guys again and see you this Saturday. And yeah, this was a good final comment to end it on. All my homies hate Liberty. I'm going to leave that up as we trail out tonight. So thank you all for joining, and we will see you all on Wednesday night.
See ya.